My audio is doing the craziest things right now, which means I have a tab open with the YouTube. Oh, this is going to be quite a problem. Please hold. If I start hearing myself, that means... Wait a minute. Sorry, please. One moment. I'm like getting my own audio back to myself. This is very crazy. I've never heard this before. Okay, if it comes back around, I think I'm having a stroke. Anyways, I can hear myself. Oh my God. That's so crazy. Wait a minute. In my desktop audio, it's coming back through. Why am I hearing myself? Like if I'm talking now, it's also coming through this way. I'm like hearing myself, but it's not like, wait a minute. When you do the, well, that's going to throw a wrench into a lot of things. It's not the offset where you're monitoring. Okay, well, I'm going to have to Google that real quick. How silly is that? Okay, while I Google this, I'm going to chit chat about some stuff and I'm going to put my audio over there. Welcome to Office Hours with Amber. I'm Amber and this is Office Hours. I'm in OBS, but I truly have never had this issue before, which is very strange. But I'm gonna Google that while we're sitting around. But anyways, today and this month we're talking about financial and KPI budgeting for 2026. Let me Google real quick. My OBS audio of myself is coming back through my ears. I can hear my live stream through my own ears, which is so weird. The audio echo. It's not audio monitoring, which is the weirdest part. There's a stream echo. Okay, I'm gonna Google that real quick. But anyways, so the reason why that matters is because we're going to be watching some YouTube videos. And if you're hearing the desktop audio double backed to itself, it's going to circle around on itself and it's going to be crazy. So, and I did just update my OBS. So maybe something happened. Oh, who could be sure? Oh my gosh. Hi, Harry. How are you? Okay. So with KPI budgeting, I mean, honestly, I don't think I have the cognition to be able to fix that really quick. Reasonable hour again. Never. I never suggest going to bed at a reasonable hour. Anyways, how do I'm still having the issue on the other side. Feel free to chit chat amongst yourself while I figure this out. One moment. There's like a audio setting that got fucked. And I know I sound crazy, but like I can hear myself coming back through the other way. So I'm going to go on to I'll be right back. Let's do this. Yeah, all my monitors are off. How strange is this? You think that after 11 months I'd have this figured out. I think I might have solved the issue. How in God's name that happened, I have no idea. There's no desktop audio coming through, so God bless. That, I was having a stroke, I think. Okay. So sorry for the delay. Nothing's coming through, so I think we're good. That was so strange. Okay. I'm back. God bless. That, like, you know the speech jammers where they'll play back like 3 seconds a little bit delayed of what you're saying, and then you literally lose the cognitive ability to speak? That was me just now, so I appreciate you sticking around. Anyways, okay, let's talk about KPIs and budgeting. And so I'm not horribly unfamiliar with the idea, the strategy, and the point of budgeting and having targets and forecasting and all of that. Because being able to see into the future and try to make specific choices, similar with Office Hours with Amber, I made 12. December last year, I chose 12 skills I wanted to learn. And technically, I'm living out the forecast and the targets that I put out for myself last year. So what you're seeing today is actually the consequence of, like a positive consequence of forecasting and budgeting and target setting and cascading. So we'll start first with like what I'm familiar with and like kind of like lay the groundwork of where I'm starting from. And then most of today, I'm going to be looking into YouTube, ChatGPT, Full Stack Modeler on like other people's ideas around targets, budgeting, financial, KPI, all that. So if the audio freaks out again, bear with me. Okay. Side note, we've got 1 month until the Active Cell Conference. Are you excited? I know I am. I am 80% of the way done with my presentation. I'm really stoked about it. If you see Exceltism Jack in the chat, she is also one of the presenters. And if you would like to join us in Vegas, December 1st through 3rd, it's not too late. You can still get that plane ticket, get that hotel reservation. You can meet us there. You can go to the activecell.com/shop for a 10% discount with Peachy Pro. Such a YouTuber, I know. It's disgusting. Anyways, okay, so the reason why I want to do target setting and cascading right now is because 2026 is like literally around the corner. You sneeze, we're there. And so the best time to do your budgeting is usually before the year starts, so you can start fresh, because sometimes there's a lot of businesses, and also a lot of what I'm about to say is coming through the context and lens of working for Anheuser-Busch. So preface, a lot of this is not ideas. I've never had an original thought in my life. I'm purely the regurgitation of things that I've heard. So yeah. Anyways, so sometimes what big organizations will do is it's hard to show year over year like improvement, or really what they'll do is they'll take last year's performance plus or minus X% and be like, let's do better next year. Not rocket science. Sometimes that's as easy as some targets and some KPIs need to be. Bigger things, if you know, like, hey, I would like to expand my business and build a building, or, you know, invest in some facility, like invest in something, then you have like a specific target that you have to achieve. And then you have to look through all of your financials and all of your KPIs and like, what can we do to achieve that specific thing? So the methodologies of forecasting or of targeting, there's a lot of nuance to it. And additionally, underneath that is if you set KPIs of like, for instance, out of stocks is, you know, you don't want an out of stock, but naturally in life, sometimes you're going to run out of something. And so by setting the target at 0, every time you're red, then you're like constantly shaming yourself. So would you rather set a human element of, this makes it look like I have a beard. Maybe let's move that. There we go. There's a human element of target setting and cascading where you have to make it achievable. A stretch empowers people to do and like do more, or like find efficiencies or find new ways to continuously improve, but not setting it so high or so low that like it's impossible. And then people give up, because if I'm constantly being held to this insane standard, Says who? You know what I mean? Like, why would you make a target that's so impossible? So there's a lot of things that go into all of this that isn't just numbers in a screen, that isn't just data. So anyways, the reason why we're doing it right now is because setting your intentions, start thinking of long-term planning, or like to start thinking of the plan before you have to actually do it. So a lot of times, back to my original points, where companies will wait till January to their books will be closed. They'll take the full year snapshot of how did we do, like the full year number, because a lot of times they have the full year number, they have the monthly numbers, they have the weekly numbers, they like can break it down in so many different ways. They'll wait till the end of the year. So you're not getting targets by like until like March. It was so crazy to me that like the first 3 months of the year is really like where you create your underdog story of volumes down and out of stocks are high and this is happening and that is happening. And then the rest of the year is just you trying to claw back to whatever target they may have set. And so it is kind of funny in like higher level, big organization, corporate analytics, like the budgets are being mildly created in like October, November to December based on like large initiatives. But like really when you get to like tangible all the way to the front line metrics, that happens like January through March, which is so funny. But anyways, I'm a small business. From top to bottom, there's 1, 2 people. So like the cool thing about this month is I'll be basically making this for Good Trade Depot. So exciting. And then in week 3, I'm going to do a live interview in person. I'm going to make him come to the Amber Johnson Peachy Production Studios to review his expectations around target setting and cascading. Super exciting. But anyway, so that's the end goal of this month, but enough yammering. So before I started, these are kind of like some frameworks that you'll kind of hear me talking about or thinking about. Is basically budgeting is just forecasting and target setting. It's a mixture of like, what do we think will happen and what do we want to achieve and what do we need to achieve? So for instance, maybe if I'm going to use financial forecasting as like a standing ground because it's pretty commonly understood generally. So in terms of business ownership, you have to achieve some level of profitability to be able to maintain your right to operate and like keep operating. But in terms of what we want to achieve, maybe it's something like investing in that new piece of equipment. And then the reality of what we think will happen. So if we're massively understaffed, do we think that we're going to be operating at full steam and be able to like stretch? Or do we even have the people, process, technology, or routine to achieve whatever it is we're setting out to? So it's not just about wants and needs. It's also about reality and what's in the middle of there. But then that's mostly about target setting. But forecasting is really, in all of my time in like demand forecasting and really forecasting of any kind, it came down to like basically forecasting is analytical and anecdotal multiple regression. It's the combination of hundreds of variables that all came together in one moment to make one thing happen. And that's really the reality of the whole world. But what it comes down to is basically math plus humans plus magic equals forecast. And so it really is, you can use historical data, but that is not always indicative of future behavior. For instance, if we followed that model, COVID would have never happened. You know what I'm saying? Understanding future events and choices. So for instance, if you know there's something, like if we know that I'm going to throw a big party in December for all of my coworkers, there's probably money tied to that. So I need to plan ahead for things I know will happen. And then there's like mysterious vibes that just kind of exist in the middle of all of that of like, how the hell did that happen? You're like, I don't know. It's just kind of the day, I guess. So like, there's a lot of weird stuff in weird life and the universe that happens. So one thing that remains true of every financial person I've heard present. Ian Schnurr is the first one I've heard say it, but he also said he got it from somewhere. Who got it from somewhere? Who got it from somewhere? All financial models are wrong. Some are useful. So similarly, that's where you want to make sure our models and our targets and our forecasts are useful because they're going to be wrong because of the mysterious vibes and the magic that happens in the universe. God bless. So I digress. The other thing is where we're connecting our primary objective as a company to the KPI, the key performance indicators that we're measuring. So in the word, it's key performance indicator. it's an indication of how you're performing. So for instance, sometimes, or what I've seen, just because you can track it doesn't mean you have to, or you should, for instance. So if you have, how I've seen it before, if we think it's a cool metric to see how many, let's say, how many oranges do I have in my cabinet? That's a cool metric. It's a cool indicator of something, but like it's not indicating any performance that's tied to any objective I'm trying to achieve. And so a lot of times companies will throw in, well, I've got this dashboard and it measures this cool thing. Well, that cool thing's great, but if we don't have our key performance indicators that are aligned with the company's goals, and everyone in that organization knows how they impact the primary goals with what metrics they can control, what are we doing? I've seen a lot of kind of like, I think they've called it before, like, not fluff metrics, but like not performative, but like aesthetic material, like just kind of like fluffy, like doesn't drive a decision. Honestly, most all KPIs should be able to drive a decision. If it's red, what are we going to do? What levers are we going to pull to make it green? If it truly is like well, that's cool, there's sometimes a seat at the table for those metrics. For instance, I like to call them canaries in the coal mine. So a lot of times when we go back to the idea of math, humans, magic, something that we found, or for instance, you can kind of relate is, let's say if I get a scratchy throat, I can forecast that in the next few days, I'm probably going to be really sick. That is the canary in the coal mine, and I will let you Google what that means. The canary that's stopped singing basically to tell you something's coming soon. And so a lot of times you can say historical data, although not always indicative of the future, if you can find more variables that will tell you things about the future, you can start tracking the history of those things. So for instance, like with weather forecasters, they look at like if the barometric pressure is this and the heat is this and the humidity is this, perhaps a hurricane. Like being able to look at all of these other things historically can tell you kind of what the future's saying. So a lot of times there's metrics that don't specifically drive the value, but can tell you things about the future of your performance indicator. I know I'm talking in tongues. How you can measure that is a KPI tree. So primary objective, the four most common ones that I've seen is like financial, because that protects your right to operate the business. Customer experience, which is like, for instance, like Apple, they care about having like the best user interface and having the best customer experience. And I'm sure obviously they'll have financial goals as well, but they care about their product and the product's ability to, make people happy. Also Anheuser-Busch, they've got like a huge, like I learned a lot about customer centricity from them. So like net promoter score, maybe that's what you're aiming for. Like we've got money, we've got budget. How do we make people happier? Quality, safety, similarly. So whatever that performance indicator is, I would hope, I think a lot of times companies have trouble, like they're like, oh, well, safety's over here and then financial's over here. But oftentimes everything normally ties back to financials. So let me show like this. Because we'll just call this profit. So for instance, customer experience. If people are having a fantastic time in your business, like interacting with your business, interacting with your product, it's likely going to drive sales. If the quality of your product is, let's say, bad quality and you're getting a lot of returns, that's going to financially disincentivize you. Similar with safety. If you're constantly having safety concerns and recalls or like workplace incidents or chronic injuries, that's going to hurt you financially. So all of this usually connects back to some sort of financial situation. Maybe not like the heart of it, but usually that's where why we're focusing on the financial and KPI budgeting is because they are all inherently tied together. How we separate that out though, really it's your primary goal, all of the sub metrics that add up to that thing, and then underneath each of those things has like a whole slew. You can continue this tree all the way down to like every single nut and bolt of the supplier, the person interacting with it, the hours that you paid them, the things that came back. Like you can track all of this down to the front line level. And so what I love about Anheuser-Busch, no matter how big the company is, we knew the highest level objectives. And then me as like a forecaster or a truck driver or a warehouse person knew exactly how they impacted this with their metrics. So I think that's where I learned the massive importance of like KPIs as well as forecasting, as well as finances. For instance, profit. We've got revenue and usually it looks like an equation of profit equals, revenue minus expenses and all the other stuff. But inside of that is the revenue of service. So let's say this is like can production. Inside can production is like, how much did the can cost? How much did the truck that drove it here cost? How much did we make off of, what's the profit? Like, what did we charge the client? Were there any returns? Were there any damages? All of those live underneath that. Similar with expenses. It's like, we've got fixed, we've got variable. Inside of there, we can then separate out. We're no longer going from, I think we're going to sell $50 the next month. And now it's like, no, because of these 15 things that I'm tracking, I know that we can get within this window of forecasted understandability. God, what am I saying? We're narrowing the amount of magic that's happening in your forecast when you focus on the math, the humans, and then the how the KPI tree kind of happens. That was a lot of words. Okay, so now that's what I'm starting with in my brain. So my understanding of what KPIs we need for this business, not really what I'm looking for today. I'm more so going to be looking at kind of budgeting methodologies, because I kind of know like the plus or minus, the seasonality, but like I'm going to see if there's any words of wisdom for small businesses. So we're going to be using YouTube, ChatGPT, Full Stack Modeler. And hopefully the audio works. We're going to find out. But let's do it. Let's do YouTube, ChatGPT, Full Stack Modeler. Okay. Fix that. Wonderful. And we have budgeting strategies. Perfect. So before I started, let me zoom in so y'all can see it. So basically I asked ChatGPT, I'm a small business owner. I want to budget out my KPIs and my finances. Can you inform me of common business strategies? And I'm going to answer a few questions so it can kind of recontextualize, give me some better information. So I'm going to do that here in a sec. But let's just dive right into like YouTube. And then also I wanted to see, let's do budget. Let's just search the whole thing for budget and see if there's any good stuff. I did that in the intro. Capital budgeting. Let's take a peek. Budget tracker. Okay. I think those are the ones I found earlier that I wanted before I had to close them. Ooh. Okay. And YouTube. Small business budgeting. Okay. Let's do...
Got $1 billion.
Gee. Not Dave Ramsey. Love him. Not quite for this. KPIs. I don't need to develop the KPIs though. Doesn't help that I'm picky. Financial KPIs. Oh wait, there's me. Okay. Let's do it.
How do you build a budget for a startup company?
Step 1, you build a revenue plan that's both ambitious and realistic. Your revenue plan should be a good balance between being aggressive and also being realistic on what you can achieve as a company. Start with a 5-year revenue plan. Your plan should factor into an improved profit margin year over year as the business revenue targets. Your headcount plan should be built by function. Start with where you are today and then think of how many more heads you need to hire in each area to achieve your revenue goals. Then your headcount plan should guide your budget for salaries and wages. And then finally, step 3, layer in all the other operating expenses such as rent, tools.
Good enough.
If you're having trouble formulating your marketing and advertising budget, it may be because you don't truthfully understand the key metrics inside of your business that will make this information very.
What? Okay, let's do this one.
Or web app.
Beep, 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 beep.
Business budget template. Welcome back, boss. Tara Wagner here, and I did a video a few months ago on setting up a business budget using a budgeting software called YNAB. And I heard from a lot of you that you need a business budget. Does not know I should know how to do this or this should be easier. And I want you to put all on the path of the profit first method. And then over time, I recommend you grab this book. I'll link it below and you can get more in depth with it. Okay. Now you need 2 things to get this started. The first thing you need is 5 minutes every week. So some online banking, you don't have a business checking account. To do this, what happens is it gets.
Might be looking for something a bit niche.
You have $10,000 coming to that.
KPI budgeting techniques. Maybe KPI target setting. Okay, there we go. There I am. I'm like, okay, let's do this guy. Let's see what he's got to say.
A couple of prompts in.
Let's see what he has to say.
To develop key performance indicators, start with your goals. You need answering. Once you have a clear goal defined, written down and circulated, then you can start working out how you're going to get to that goal. Plan to support your KPIs. Don't start this step by looking at what information you have. This is the wrong approach and often leads to settling for okay rather than great KPIs. Work out exactly what data you need to track progress on the KPIs that you have selected. Make sure the KPIs drive the right behaviours and thus the right results. Get your finance team to help work out how to capture and collate the data needed. Think about what additional inputs might be needed. Taking the previous example to create ownership of the KPIs. One of the best ways of creating ownership of KPIs is involving specific team members in designing.
Nice thing is I kind of did this last year, so I don't think my what KPIs are the issue. It's more of I think I need to just look into business forecasting techniques.
KPIs and setting them up. Accountability and discussion of the KPIs.
We have a monthly PR, so that's been really good. Okay, small business forecasting techniques. I am going to take note of that. The scenario planning, best, worst, most likely scenarios. I often forget scenario planning. It's always an afterthought. I build the whole model and then I'm like, what would happen if we just turn that all the way down? let's say it's the same functionally.
Every morning, your inbox triggers.
So I know I'm trying to explain this maths at the end, so I'm going to try and just keep it really simple. That's what we need to do. We'll think in terms of measurement. So how do you decide what you're going to measure within the business? And the other thing as well, we've all heard that you can't improve what you don't measure. Has everyone heard that before? So it all starts with measurements. You need something as that baseline. So for me, this
is actually really exciting because now I'll have a full year of data to be able to play with, because last year was just a lot of like, I don't know. But this year, so much more.
Where do I start? I go back to the critical client flow and I try and extract and find the metrics from within here, because this is how I get paid, right? So I want to try and figure out where in here are some metrics. Now I'm going to give you 5 that you start with, and then you can kind of build your own. And as you start to build your own dashboard, you should be measuring the number of leads that you get. Where are the leads coming from? You can drill that down. I mean, if you want to start simple, just start with one number. Add up all of your leads and that becomes your first metric. As you evolve over time, you might start to divide that up and you have different lead sources. But again, we'll just start really simple. The next one, number of sales. How many sales are you making? So you speak with your finance person and you ask them to say, how many invoices am I issuing out every single month or every week or whatever? That becomes the metric that you start measuring. If you haven't got anything in place, just measure these on a monthly basis. As you grow and you want to have a better pulse on the business, you might start to get those numbers reported to you on a weekly basis. But you are where you are right now, start with 5 metrics. I'll give you the 5 metrics and ask for these on a monthly basis. The next one is revenue. How much money are you actually making in that time period? How much money do you take? And I make these easy because these numbers, you should be able to get, revenue and cost of goods sold. You can go straight to your accounts person to give that, rather than figuring out stuff like, average dollar sale. And there's lots of different ways. Like the reason I start with revenue is, that's a nice, easy number. What a great place to start. How much money are you making? The next one down is cost of goods sold, or COGS. How much does it cost you to deliver the product or service? And that's a really interesting number to look at. If you're selling a product or service, you want to make sure that it costs you less than the money you make to deliver the product. Otherwise, you've got a broken business. Now, this starts just at top line numbers, but you can drill it down deeper. Melissa and I went through a process of figuring out what is our revenue and our cost of goods sold for each of the different products and services that we offer. So that way we could identify which products were making us money, which ones weren't. So then we could start to go, hey, we really need to double down on this because this is where we make our money. But start top line first. And then over time, you can break it up. Like, at least then you'll become aware. Like Nick said, you'll start off and you'll go, why is this so high relative to this one? And it's always that way. Well, that at least gets you to start asking the right question. And then you'll need to drill into these to try and answer them. Does that make sense? And then the final one is the repeat clients. How many people are actually coming back? What that tells you is whether or not you're delivering something that's working, getting the result that someone likes. Like some people use things like the Net Promoter Score. That's another way that you can monitor how happy your clients are. But just figuring out if they come back, that works really well, assuming that you're not selling sleep apnea products where they only make one purchase, so they don't really come back anyway. So you would probably need to find another metric there. That might be how many referrals are you getting from those clients? How many cross-sells are you making afterwards? So they're the 5 metrics. I link it back to the critical client flow because that's how you make the money. So what a great place to start. And then those key metrics, which I've listed there, allow you to get derivative metrics. So a derivative is just something that derives the answer from a combination of something else. So if I look at sales divided by leads, I can now find out my conversion rate. I can go, oh, great. Now, if I'm generating that amount of leads, I'm making this many sales, okay, I'm converting 1 in 3 people. These numbers also become great metrics to monitor, to then start you to figure out where the levers are that you need to pull. And then we've got revenue minus COGS is your gross profit. I'm not going to go into those into great detail, other than the reason I picked those is because then you can get the derivative numbers, which then become your pulse on the business, get you to start asking questions to then figure out, what are we going to try and do to improve certain numbers. So an example of this, let's say you're looking at this monthly or weekly or whatever it is, we've got 300 leads, we get 100 sales.
I'm glad he echoed the things that I said. I feel good about that. I think capital budgeting is like when you're doing like an individual project. So I think I'm going to skip that one. We'll come back maybe.
Your goal as a leader is to make sure that your team is performing. What are the indicators or KPIs that you can use to measure that success? That's what we're talking about in this video, so stay tuned. Whether you're a seasoned
I think we already have like a like our individual metrics with our employees. So I'm not worried about that one.
Goal setting can seem like a fairly straightforward process. You likely write down whatever you want to achieve and then begin to do what you can to reach that goal. But somehow there still seems to be a lack of direction in our approach, which significantly diminishes our chances of success. In order to truly have a shot at accomplishing those goals, we need to have a way to measure our progress and achievement. And this is where the OKR framework comes in. OKR, or Objectives and Key Results, is a goal-setting framework that was initially developed by Intel Corporation CEO Andrew Grove and Man of the Year in the 1970s. Grove introduced the OKR concept to Intel as a way for the company to improve its success rate for meeting its objectives throughout the organization.
So the good news about what ChatGPT just sent me is all of these are tracked and managed and in a part of our performance review monthly. Maybe like a few derivations of, we'd call it something different, but overall, not far off. I would say leadership and strategy, of all of the KPIs I've created, the one that I hold myself to, I have not reported on the best. So a lot of room for growth there, which is exciting.
And the key result. And they match the two purposes. The objective is the direction. The key result has to be measurable. At the end, you can look and without any argument say, did I do that or did I not do it? Yes, no.
Since then, OKR has grown in popularity in the corporate world, having been adopted by businesses like Google, Netflix, Twitter, and Airbnb. The essence of this framework is to set challenging or ambitious goals with measurable results, starting out with your objective. Simply put, an objective is what you're striving to achieve. It is your main goal that informs your actions and process. The objective can be thought of as the what that you are working to accomplish. For every objective, you have 2 to 5 key results. The key results are the benchmarks that you use to help track your progress. They serve as metrics of your success and indicate whether you are heading in the right direction. They can be thought of as the how you are going to achieve your objective. Now, there is obviously a clear distinction between your objective and key results. Objectives set the direction that you're heading in and should not contain a metric, while key results often provide the measure to gauge that progress. For instance, one of my objectives was increase my knowledge of personal finance and improve my relationship with money. My key results would be read 3 books on personal finance by the end of the year, create a 6 to 12 month emergency fund to provide me with some security, and contribute consistently to a retirement account. Each one of these key results gave me tangible goalposts that I could have my eye on and work towards that would ultimately get me closer to my overall objective. John Doerr, an early investor in Google and perhaps the main reason for OKR's popularity, has described the structure of an OKR as I will blank as measured by blank. The first blank being your objective and the second blank being your key results. He's also gone on to say that many of us approach goal setting in the wrong way because we don't move towards these goals with a sense of purpose and inspiration. At first look, one may think that an OKR is suspiciously similar to your run-of-the-mill KPI or key performance indicator.
This man is talking shit on our KPIs? How dare?
But KPIs are generally used as reporting measures that have less to do with goal setting. They also tend to be less specific since they aren't objective-tied metrics. I think that's what sets the OKR method apart, that we often get lost in pursuing our goals simply as an idea or concept, but we don't generally have results to quantify our approach and improve the odds of us actually achieving that goal. Now, there are plenty of things that pop up in our schedule that we need to take care of, but having an idea of what...
Okay, I'm gonna calibrate a few thoughts. So, cool thing is basically going from our objective to the financial and KPI bit. Well, actually, having, I feel like I need to draw this. How do I want to, when a thought is bigger than an Excel sheet, but smaller than a Canva, like smaller than a Canva whiteboard, but bigger than a piece of paper, but smaller than other things. I'm like, need a piece of paper. Wonder if I can move my camera so you can see what I'm doing. Let's do this. There we go. Okay. So what I'm imagining is objective, and that can be financial. I could have done this in, let me see if I can pull this all the way out actually. Horrible angle, but who cares? Okay, maybe if I turn it this way. Does that work? Maybe? Let me move this here. Okay, objectives, goals. We have financial, customer experience, and operational efficiency. We'll just call it operational. And some of these are going to overlap. I don't really care. I'm going to need to like know where my goals are to be able to kind of backwards up into it. So let me think. So financial, that goes into profit. Oh my gosh, my handwriting is so bad. Profit, which is revenue and expenses. We've already kind of done that. Customer experience is, well, maybe like instead of that, I could go into my different departments. Let's do that. How many markers? Let's do purple marker. Okay, so let's do, of this business, we have production, warehouse, fulfillment. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, okay. I know what I'm doing now. Sales and we'll just call this like people dash admin. Okay, really, it's not that we have financial goals that turn into this. It's more if we have individual departments that turn into, let's do a different level. Let's do red. That turn into financial and operational. Maybe. Yeah, I think that's what I think. And ops in terms of like people is like, you know, people's development, talking about stuff like that. So I think approaching it, which obviously every budget is the culmination of all of these things. But I think if I was to think through, and this is kind of how I started it, but it's nice to come back to basics, but financial, that's where you can start listing out how does all money get spent is made and how does all money get spent in these areas. Let's do blue, which goes plus, minus, and then operational. Let me see. Objective. Yeah. And then that is plus, minus, plus, minus. Yeah. And really sales is like a subsect of like those things. financially, but maybe like that's where the financials of sales comes from, like ads or marketing or leads or that stuff. Whereas like the actual yeah. And this comes from like our CRM. Fulfillment comes from our e-com and transport. Warehouse comes from Airtable. I know I'm cheating on Excel. It'll live. And then production comes from like our, well, Airtable dash, like kind of pipe drive. And then this comes from Excel where I'm tracking that. But like inside of the, yeah. I think I've got it. Sorry for that brief intermission. I think we're back. Okay. Anyways, I think I'm going to have an easier time being able to, instead of just trying to do the P&L and do this, like that will all add up eventually. But unless I work one department at a time on how they specifically, like there's the bottom up and top down budgeting strategies of like, here's my goal. How are you guys going to achieve it? Versus here's my performance. What can I do? And then meeting in the middle, really, that is the fact that I guess because I searched small business budgeting, a lot of them aren't going to say top down, bottom up, because oftentimes you're so overwhelmed by just doing one. So yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep exploring the internet before I get too hot to trot.
Very clear. You may already be spending on marketing, but you're concerned that you're either paying too much for what you're getting or you're not actually sure if your marketing is profitable. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the key metrics that you need to understand about your own business before you can develop an effective marketing plan, marketing budget, and truly analyze if your marketing is profitable. Let's go ahead and dive in. Your cost per lead.
Now I want to see like if there's any creative KPIs that I haven't used before. Like for instance, because I come from logistics land, I'm very familiar with like operational KPIs. But in terms of like finance KPIs of like debt to income ratio, that's where I get a little gray. So I think I need to use the last 11 minutes we have to open my mind to new KPIs. Yeah, we'll see.
The cost that you have for each lead that comes in. Your numbers are per core event turn into a booking or core.
I do love lead conversion rate. I do love.
Is by business that has
booking conversion, sales
and this
conversion.
is something separate that you're going to need to keep your eye on. This is actually going to cost you if a
I do like some of these other sales KPIs. I think because we're not really a sales organization, it oftentimes, like, even if I knew what the lead conversion percent was, like we take specific operational approaches to like improve that. Like, are we following up with customers? Are we tracking and managing the questions they're asking? Do we have quick answers for the things they have? How quick are we getting, like, what inside of our control can we, what inside of our scope of control do we have to improve that? So I've done that before, but like in terms of like average order value or like tracking, just to know what the number is, to say like, okay, if we land 3 more deals, what's the average of what I can expect? Like, I think there's a lot of sales KPIs that I haven't tracked very much because we were trying for so long to just do anything. So I digress. That is no excuse to not do it better in the future.
It's also a great way to remind yourself of the importance of reminding your clients, if you were a recurring revenue business, to have repeat services or additional purchases and clients per year. That for those clients that
I do like the customer lifetime value. I will say that's kind of a fun one for instance, like with Good Trade Depot, we have our minimum order quantity, like 4,000 cans. And then we don't have a maximum. It's more of like when you get over, like, our capped day max is like 20,000 cans. So if you were to want to do like 1 million cans, that's going to take us a bit longer than if you went to a co-packer that has the capability to do 1 million cans in an hour. So that's where there's kind of a natural floor and ceiling where we can say, like, if this brand comes in at this rate, sells this much per month, they likely will expand at a place like their acceleration of sales will lead them to leaving and graduating from Good Trade Depot 2 years from now. And so how many production runs are going to happen in those 2 years? Then you can kind of calculate the lifetime value, which I think is an interesting metric because it again, that's like a canary in the coal mine. If we can look at sales month 1, month 2, month 3, and the kind of tangent line of their growth, we can then kind of estimate much in advance when they're probably going to graduate and when that revenue will leave our system. So I think that's kind of fun.
That are worth a lot more, and how long that it takes you to acquire a new client versus a low churn rate.
I like what she's doing. I'm going to put this link in the chat. I like what she's doing with like these formulas, as you see, are not complex. There's 2 to 3 parts of it. And if you were to like, for instance, like same thing with a P&L, although your revenue is made up of like 50 different services and 50 different clients and 50 different months and all of this stuff, it just equals revenue. So then it simplifies your ability to conceptually understand the KPIs, which makes it a lot easier. So what I like is that she's taking 2 to 3 variables maximum to be able to calculate her KPIs, which I love because that is the top 2 to 3 sections of the KPI tree.
Different materials and all of those things. And maybe you don't have custom period. And what is your monthly recurring?
Yeah, I like her video. I wonder if she makes more videos. Ooh, she's in AI land. Okay. Fun. I'll have to look back.
That account.
Okay, let's just look at some basic forecasting techniques and see what people got going on. Kenji explains.
Build a monthly budgeting and forecasting model in Excel. First, we'll take the actual operating expenses for each department. Second, we'll forecast those going forward using Excel's built-in forecasting tools. Thirdly, we'll create different scenarios for these forecasts, like a best case scenario and a wide, so that I can navigate to Control-Alt-V. Once in here, we just want to paste the December.
Cool feature about, the ask button is not there. Maybe it's just on my videos. Anyways, on YouTube, there's like in the info box, there's like wait, maybe it's here. No, it's gone. There was an ask button where you can like ask, and that seems lazy because videos are already like such a short amount of information being distilled. But that distills it even further, being like, hey, at this timestamp, this thing is said, or like, I'm looking for when in this video does he talk about this? So the nice thing about if you're watching this, I should have said this at the beginning. I think there's eventually going to be an ask button where you can be like, when does she get to the point? You can ask AI and then it'll find it for you.
1, so plus 1 month. Shift right more heavily than the older data, and it also accounts for things like
I should know about the forecast, like how the forecast stuff in Excel works. I think because I've had to do forecasting so many times in so many different ways and do it manually, I have not trusted the forecast formula itself, but never say never. Who knows? Maybe it's better now.
Seasonality, so if there's any trends. And finally, yes, that for the best case, we want them. So first we'll add operating expenses, which is for the live case. The idea here, we want to delete these figures we've spent in marketing right here, divided by our cost of acquisition. Hit enter.
Let's see what this guy's got to say.
Hey guys, today I'm talking about cash flow forecasting. So the main thing I'm going to talk about today is when you're starting a business, how much cash are you going to need to start that? Where you want to make sure you know what cash flow is going to go out when you're starting your business. The next piece you're going to want to know is your operating outflows. So the key here is don't get too precise. I think people get bogged down in thinking they need to be super. That's all government organization.
Night, Jack. Thank you for coming.
Or that. So that's a place to start. And then this is the trickiest bit. So before you open your business, or even when you're running your business, so once you have all this data in here, so you have your inflows and outflows before you open your doors, and now you have your operating first year of operations going on. This is all, we've created all these calculations. But so if I said, okay, well, we're going to get a second.
He's using Google Sheets? Gross. Sorry, no offense. Okay, well, I was sufficiently whelmed. Okay. Let's see what this guy's
and these
got.
would be opinions from experts, decision makers, or customers about these different period. This period, I'm going to sell 100 widgets again. Moving averages might say, okay, the last 3 periods, if I take the average of what happened in the last 3 different periods differently, because maybe we've had like 2. The qualitative forecasting methods, there are you've got the Delphi model method, which is where you've got consumers that, or maybe they're just trusted advisors or something like that, but they give their opinion about what they think is going to happen, how many widgets they'd buy, or how many widgets they think would be sold in different markets or wherever else. And then you've got a group that compiles all that information and sort of interprets it, but then they give it to decision makers, and those decision makers then go through. So we've got 3 different groups of people working on things in that Delphi method there. The decision makers, those who compile all the information, and then of course the people that are surveyed or asked about their opinions on it. And then there's the Salesforce estimates, and we typically see this quite a bit, where you've got individual salespeople that they make their own sales forecasting estimates, and then from those numbers, then that looking at one we've got here that we're going to go through, we're going to be addressing.
That's fair. Okay. I'm sufficiently whelmed, not over, not under. I think it confirmed some thoughts in my head. It really is the mixture of math, humans, magic. And so I think, thankfully, I feel confirmed in my beliefs of what I think about forecasting already. And then in terms of like, really this month is the culmination of all of the months that I've done. So like Lambdas, dynamic arrays, and Power Query, and not really Power Apps. Sorry. Man, I wish. It was too much on the brain. But this month is the culmination of all of the months together. So now I'm going to pressure myself to build something that I can not only use to cascade what the next 12 months should look like, but also building in my own forecasting tool so that each month it'll iterate, it'll save my records, it'll update all of the data from all of our reporting sources. Now, when I do it next week, I'm going to use fake data because I'm not trying to spill Matt's beans. I think he'd kill me. But anyways, building the structure to be able to handle the updatability, because that's the thing, is a lot of people don't end up using forecasts because they can't reach them, they forget what they are, they don't remember them, they can't update them. You have to update every single row every single time. And so I want to make this as updatable so it becomes useful. Anyways, thank you for joining. Sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning. I'm gonna go eat some food. I will see you next week on After Hours with Amber. That's all I got.